Good morning and welcome to our Saturday morning craft time on Saturday, November 20th. We are continuing our series this month on gift card holders because 'tis the season and we will be giving lots of gifts to lots of loved ones, and sometimes we just want something really fancy to hold them and carry them and deliver them. So we've done a few earlier this month and you can check those out on our channel. Today we are doing a really cute little interactive one. And this is definitely one of those gift card holders or projects in general where people will be, wow, how did you do that? And it looks complicated and it looks like an awful lot of work, but it is really, really quite simple. So this is called the pop-up wallet. And it does look like a nice little wallet. It'll fit nicely in a standard A2 envelope, or even a little bit smaller if you wanted to make your own using the envelope punch board. But the real trick to this is when you open it up, the gift card actually pops right out of that little pocket and is pulled up so that it can be hidden and then revealed. So it's just a really cute little mechanism. It's a great way to use up some of your pattern paper. We are using a little bit more pattern paper on this one than we would typically use. This one is using the brand new Frostable from Photoplay. I just love the little hot cocoa mugs and the really wintry feel. So even if this was for, say, a winter birthday, you could absolutely use it. And then this one, I used Echo Park's Salutations Christmas. And this is actually similar paper that I'm going to be using in our actual project today. So I just love the dark colors on this. It gives a very vintage, very classy feel. This one I use Simple Stories Make It Merry, added on some die cuts to really just kind of jazz it up. And then I thought I would give it a try to do a vertical one. So you can do it with either direction, whether it's the landscape or the portrait. And this one's just going to pop out to the side there and just pull that little gift card out. Now you do just have to be careful if you are doing this vertical one as opposed to the horizontal one, and make sure your pattern paper is going in the right direction. And that's why this one ended up being horizontal, because I cut the paper wrong. We all do it, but just gives you lots of opportunity to change things up, and you could decorate up the front as well. I've kept them pretty simple. This one I used a little cut apart as the message, and we can just have lots and lots of fun with that. So without further ado, let's get into crafting these little wallets. Excuse me, the one I'm going to be doing today will be, oops, someone just fell on the floor, will be a horizontal version. And here are the measurements, which will also be down below in the description. We do need a colored cardstock, and this is going to be for our card base. So this one I used black, this one I used green. And in my measurements, I did not include a piece for the back of the wallet, but you could absolutely cut some extra pattern paper to fit that as well. So today I'm going to be using red. These are our score marks, but we'll go through that when we do it together. You do need a piece of white cardstock that is 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. That is for our internal pop-up mechanism. And this time I think I'm switching it up. I think I've got black instead of white. You can use a color. You know, this one I used red. It doesn't have to be white. It's just, I want to just say that it should be a contrasting color, but you could also absolutely do the same color as well. And then we need 3 different pattern papers. One, we're going to cut 2 pieces, and that's for the inside and outside of the front flap, which is 2.5 by 4 1/4. We need a skinny piece, which goes on your flap here. That is 1 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then one last piece for inside behind the mechanism. That is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. And like I said, we'll go over that again as we cut but I just wanted to have those visible for you to go through that. So let's go ahead and cut our paper. All right, I'm gonna start with my red, which is going to be my base. This is Maraschino. It's a beautiful Christmas red from Basil. And I need to cut a piece that's 5.5 by 7 3/4. Now, I will say you can get 2 gift card holders out of one piece of 12 by 12. So if you want to go ahead and cut a second one as we go along, so that you have that extra one ready, I'm just going to do one out of this piece. So I'm going to start with 5.5. Actually, you know, I'm going to do it the other way so you can see how you would get to. So I'm going to do 7 3/4 first as my cut. There is actually enough room left over if you wanted to use these for your internal mechanism. Then I'm going to rotate it and I'm going to cut it at 5.5. Did I do that right? 7 3/4, yeah, by 5.5. And if you were doing a second one, you would just slide it along and cut your second one at 5.5 as well. I'm going to leave it for now, might come back to that afterwards. We do need our solid piece next for our mechanism. And I've got white, I've got black. I think I'm going to do black for mine. So I'm going to save that white paper for something else. So you simply need a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 inch square. So 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. The rest of this is scrap. If you wanted to mat up any of your papers or your cut aparts down the road, you can go back to that paper, but I've just put it in my scrap pile for now. While we have these two pieces here, before we cut our pattern paper, let's do the scoring on this. And then that way these pieces are done and ready to go. The scoring is really quite simple. We're going to start by putting our red piece in our scoreboard or in our trimmer, whichever you are using. And we're going to score first at 2 3/4. So 2.75, I'm just going to score lightly at first and then build up that line. And then I'm going to slide it to 6 1/4. So that just gives us a little flap, which becomes our pocket at the bottom. Okay, so 2 3/4, 6 1/4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it vertically. And I just want to do 2 score lines, 1/2 inch from the right and 1/2 inch from the left. So in this case, I usually use the lines to the right of my cut line, but again, use whatever tool you've got, and you simply want to do 1/2 inch from each of the long edges. And you're going to go all the way down. So there's a 1/2 inch there. I'm going to rotate mine and now do the other side like so. So you should have a 1/2 inch on this side and a 1/2 inch on this side. We are actually going to cut away a good portion of this, but we'll get to that when we start assembling our card. So you can tuck that aside for now. Now we have our 3 3/4 inch square, which is going to be our pop-up mechanism. And we simply need to do 2 score lines on opposite sides. It's a square, so it does not matter which side you start with, as long as the second one is the side that is opposite. And this is going to be 3/8 of an inch. And I typically don't do 1/8 of an inch, but this just gives us a nice little flap. So if you're doing it, it is the one little tick mark past 1/4. So it's halfway between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 an inch. So we're doing 3/8, just like that. Make sure I have the right end there on my tool. And then I'm going to flip this. So now that score line is on my left, so I can score the opposite side. Same measurement, 3/8 of an inch. If you don't like 1/8 of an inch, I would recommend going a little bit deeper instead of going a little bit more shallow. And you'll see a little bit, you'll see that why that reason is when we get to assembling it. So if you really don't like 1/8 of an inch, you could do 1/2 inch from either side. It just makes your little space a little bit smaller. So 3/8 of an inch actually works really nicely for what we need it for. All right, so I've got those tucked off to the side. Let's now cut our pattern paper. And like I said, I'm using paper today from the Salutations Christmas from Echo Park. And I've just pulled out some really pretty patterns that I'm going to use. I've also brought some cut aparts because you never know where those will fit in. I actually really like those snowflakes. I've got some little call outs, and I even have a little bit of cardstock. So if you don't have pattern paper you like, you can definitely use cardstock. I actually may use this green for that little narrow part that just goes on the pocket. But I also have this scrap that has the black snowflakes. So I actually quite like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to do this combination with the green on the inside. You know what? What's on the back of this? Yeah, I think I'll stick with that original plan. Okay, so now that I've kind of got that figured out, and that's usually the hardest part is just picking what patterns you're going to use. So this piece here, I need to cut 2 pieces that are 2.5 by 4 1/4. So I'm going to start, and this is a very random pattern, so it doesn't matter necessarily what side I start from. If you are using a directional pattern, we're going to cut the width first. So you want your pattern going the correct way across your paper. So I'm going to cut my 4 1/4 inch piece first. Double check my measurements. 4 1/4 all the way up. That's off to the side. Now I'm going to rotate 1 turn to the right, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches wide. So there's 1. And there's 2. So it's really nice that even with the 6 by 6 pad, you can get the same pattern for the inside and the outside of that top flap of your wallet. So there we go. That's that piece there. Our next piece is going to be the piece that goes on top of the pocket and on top of the flap right here. That's going to be kind of part of the reveal. So this piece will always be showing. And like I said, I'm going to use this black snowflake. And once again, I'm going to start by cutting my width first, which is 4 1/4. And then I'm going to rotate it and cut it at 1 1/4. It's just a narrow little strip. This would also be a great opportunity to put sentiments or use border strips. You don't need a whole lot. You just need that little piece that is 1 1/4 by 4 1/4. All right, a few little scraps that I might use later on. And then the last piece that we are cutting is the piece that goes behind the mechanism. So you don't necessarily need anything too fancy. It's not going to be seen a whole lot. So you do want something that has a slightly smaller pattern as well. And that's where I'm now starting to worry a little bit about using this. Not a whole lot of it's going to be seen. So maybe I'll go with my red snowflake instead. No, you know what? Let's stay with plan A. I'm going to go with the green because I want to use this cut apart on my piece. All right, so again, decisions are always the hardest part of any crafting, and we can go back and forth, but I'm gonna stick with my plan to use this beautiful green plaid. So I need a piece that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. Once again, I'm going to just start here with my 4 1/4 inch. So doing my width first, and then rotating it and cutting it at 3 1/4. There we go. So that is for in behind our mechanism inside our card. And you know what? That is it for cutting paper. But before we go ahead and put our paper trimmer away, we are going to do a little trim, and you could absolutely use scissors. I like to use my trimmer, if I can, on a long stretch like this so that it stays straight. But we're going to go back to this very first piece of cardstock that we cut and scored. Right now, I have the smallest panel at the top. And so you'll see that we've got long skinny panels here and long skinny panels here. What we're going to do, if I can find my pen, is we are going to cut away these pieces here, so that all we have left is extra small panels at the top for our pocket. And that's going to just help us form it in. So like I said, you're welcome to use scissors. I prefer to use my trimmer on a long stretch like this. So once again, I'm just lining it up at that 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to go only up to where the score lines intersect here at the top, like so. And then I'm going to rotate it. This time I'm going to be coming down from the top and repeating here. All right. And then I can just use my scissors to snip away on these little ones. Okay. So now your base piece should look like a big fat capital T. So we've got the 2 little panels at the top and then a big fat base on our T down the way there. And let's continue on. We're going to decorate this up, but before we do, I'm just going to fold along my score lines, give it a good burnish. I find folding helps me to see those score lines, so when I'm putting my pattern paper on, I can get it nice and centered. So I've just folded along those 2 long ones, and then I'm going to fold these little flaps in. But we're not going to stick that down yet. We've got to get our background piece in first. All right. So those are all ready to go. If you are like me, I have a smooth side and a textured side to my cardstock. I am going to put this with the textured side facing up. I want the texture to go on the outside. And once again, I've got my little flaps at the top. And I'm going to start with one of my pieces of the 2 1/2 by 4 1/4. And this is simply going to get layered onto that front piece. It's going to end up being our front flap. And this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use my corner rounder on just the bottom 2 corners. So it kind of finishes it a little bit differently. My previous ones, I kept my corners pretty square, but you know, to change it up a little bit, I'm just going to do the bottom 2 corners. I'm not doing the ones at the top. First of all, it's really hard to cut with the corner rounder through multiple layers, but also I think that when you open it up, it'll look a little bit funny. And then once again, when we get down to doing the bottom corners, it'll be hard to do because this will be 3 layers inside. So I'm just going to do that front flap, but then make sure you do the same thing to your pattern paper so that they all line up. And I don't think I'm going to ink these guys up. Most of my other papers are pretty dark, so I'm going to leave this nice and clean. But if you like that look of having an inked edge, definitely do that before you stick it down. I'm just going to use my tape runner and center it all the way around, making sure my rounded corners are lining up. And there is the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this away from me because I'm going to do the other side. So this is where that matching piece is going to go on the inside. And the reason why I flip it from this way to this way is if you are using directional paper, right now this is going to be, this is the bottom, but here, this is the bottom. So you want to make sure you've got your direction correct. So in this case, I'm going to round the two top corners like so, and then stick it down. There we go, and center all the way around. So there we go. So just to recap so far, we have taken our cardstock and we've cut away those extra pieces that we don't need, only keeping the flaps that we're going to use to make our pocket. And then we've taken those first two pieces of pattern paper, 2.5 by 4 1/4, and put it on the outside and the inside of that top flap. Okay, the next piece we're going to put in place is this centerpiece. And we want to do that before we form our pocket so that we're not fighting with it and try to tucking it in once the pocket is formed. It certainly is a lot easier to put down when everything is nice and flat. So this is our piece that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and it is simply going to center all the way around on that center panel. Now, if you have made a boo-boo, if you have a place that you are a piece that you don't necessarily like, remember that this bottom section here is going to get covered up. So if you have to cheat at all, cheat with your placement closer to this top fold because this bottom stuff is not going to get seen. Also, this comes into play if you had a really special piece of pattern paper you wanted to use here, but maybe you couldn't get it wide enough. Don't worry about that 3 1/4 measurement. You can come up a little bit because it is going to get covered. So just a little extra tip there. I'm not going to round the corners. I'm just going to keep this all nice and square and flowing down into the pocket. And centering everything left to right, top to bottom, unless you have to cheat like I just talked about. Okie dokie. Now, we could put our strip on here, and actually, you know what? Maybe we will. If you're uncertain, if you're worried about getting it in the right direction, we can form the pocket first, but I'm simply going to fold this up. And my paper is non-directional, so I'm okay anyways. And I'm going to put that last piece of pattern paper right here on the pocket. And this is going to then eventually fold down, and you can see how that's all starting to come together. Once again, keeping everything nice and square, no rounding. And once again, if you need to, and let me see if I can, no, it's the one that dropped on the floor here. With this one here, when I was making it and I was cutting out this little strip, I needed to make it a little bit bigger so that those trees didn't get cut off the top. So all I did was, again, I cheated it towards the top and aligned it up with the top side of that pocket so that my outer border stayed consistent for when it was closed. So if you need to make this piece a little bit bigger to get the full pattern in, you can just cheat it up to the edge and it totally looks like you did it on purpose. Okay, so now I've got my paper. I can go ahead, I know I've got this cut exact, so I can go ahead and center it all the way around. Give it a good rub down. Now like I said, I'm using tape runner. You could absolutely use liquid glue or whatever your preferred adhesive is. In this case, it's simply whatever your preference is. The next step when we attach our flaps for our pocket, I personally prefer score tape so that it has a really good, strong hold. But again, use whatever tape you prefer to make sure it sticks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this flap again. I'm keeping my top flap at the top, the pocket at the bottom, and I'm going to grab my score tape. I'm going to fold in my flap and put tape right here. And I'm going to go as close to that folded edge as I can. The inner flap, if you're a little bit short, doesn't matter because this is going to be what holds it. Then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the left-hand side. So just a little piece of score tape. If I can find the end of my tape there. All right, so I'm going to do just a little piece of tape here as close to the fold as I can get. And remember that flap is folded in. My flap is folded in again, and another piece of score tape right along that fold. Hang on to that because I'll need to come back to it. All right, everybody with me so far? I'm imagining thumbs up across the board. Okay, so our flaps are folded in, and ultimately this is now going to fold up and still lie really flat, but create our pocket here. So I'm going to gently peel my backing, peel my other backing. And it's hard when this tape is so sticky, but what we want to try to do is keep those flaps flat and then just fold straight up. You may get a little bit of a bubble if your edges aren't perfect. That's okay. It's still going to lie nicely in your envelope, and for the recipient, they're not even going to notice, but just try to be as careful as you can folding up. And there you have your little pocket. Now, really easily, if this is all you wanted to do, if you wanted to stop there, this is still a really cute little gift card pocket. Your gift card can still fit in that little slot, but we're going to add that little bit of extra interactivity to make it even more fun. So this is now where our little 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 square comes into play. We are going to fold. So I've got a position here, and it's hard to tell because the score line on the black does not show up very well, but I currently have my scored little panel at the top and at the bottom. The top one, you're going to fold away from you like so. Give it a good crease and burnish. Your bottom one, you're going to fold towards the panel. So this one was away, this one is towards. So it is making another little Z like we did a couple of weeks ago. So when you're done, your little square should look like that. You've got one panel coming towards you, one panel going away from you. And what this does is this is our little interactive piece. This is just a little kind of shelf or yet another pocket so that when we put our gift card in here, let me see if I can find a, it's got something to sit on. So when this pulls up, the gift card is going to come with it and not get stuck down in the pocket. Now, before we go ahead and glue, you know what, let's make the card first, and then I can show you how you can decorate that panel as well. Because it would always be nice to have an extra little message for when they take the gift card out. So here is what we're going to do. You've got your panel folded away from you. You've got your panel folded towards you. This top one here, I now want you to open up flat again. Keep this bottom one folded, and it's going to tuck in your pocket. Make sure it's centered. And this is where those measurements were important, because we now want, see if I can bring this up closer. We want the top of this fold away panel to line up right with the fold of this panel. So you want it lined up, but you don't want it overlapping. This flap still needs to be able to close. And you've still got your score panel here. This is where I'm going to put my tape, which is just right on that fold. That little panel, that little 3/8 of an inch panel that we scored on that square. Okay, just like that. So right now it's still loose, and yes, the tape is on the top. That is where we want it, because ultimately we want this square. I'm just trying to make sure I'm straight here. We want this square to be attached to the flap. So does it still fold nicely? Yes. Let's peel the backing. I'm going to close again. So I have not moved anything down here. I'm going to close it here. And now when I pull this up, it pulls that flap with it. Just like so. Let's do a side view. Like so. See how it makes that little triangle? That is exactly the way you want it. And so if you have your gift card tucked in here, and this is a little bit big, when it's closed, now all of a sudden it's going to pop up and be revealed. Alrighty, so decorating. And I know it might be a little tricky once it is in the pocket here. I mean, you could probably gently pull that out and then retuck it back in. I want to use this green Warm and Cozy cut apart. This panel is now 3 inches. So 3 inches by 3 3/4. So I'm actually going to trim this down so that there's a little bit of a border all the way around. This is where you kind of just have to eyeball it. I'm going to start by cutting just the 3x4 cut. Yeah, I think this is 3x4, yeah, or it's actually a little bit smaller. Let's get it trimmed down to its proper size first. And then I'm going to take just a little bit more. So right now this is 3. I'm going to come down to 2 7/8 and rotate and do it another 1/8 of an inch here. I'm just trying to make this as even as possible so that when I tuck it on here, yeah, so it looks like my length is still a little bit long. Let's trim it around, trim it around. And again, I'm totally cheating and just eyeballing this to make sure I still have a little bit of the green border. And it's like a haircut. If you take a little bit off at a time and take a little bit more if you need to, it's harder to stick it back on. So there, now I've got my Warm and Cozy with a relatively even border all the way around. Let's get rid of my scraps. And because the white part is rounded, I think I will go ahead and round these corners as well. And then this can attach in this little area here. And I'm going to cheat it towards the top, knowing that the bottom is going to be in the pocket. And you do not want this piece to be dimensional. Otherwise, you won't have room to put your gift card on top, and it will make your little flap difficult to tuck back into the pocket. So like I said, I'm going to cheat it towards the top. So it looks like I've got a nice even border all the way around, and I can gently tuck this back inside. There we go. So now when the gift card is taken out, they see this sweet little message. And you could put some decoration on the front as well. This is where one of these little guys might really come into play. Let's do, I think I'm going to dig in and I'm going to get this little celebrate the season and just tuck it in the corner here. So let's get, and yeah, I'm going to try and do making spirits bright as well. So that piece. That might tuck in underneath there just so. Okay, we'll see in a second. And celebrate the season. Oh, I didn't cut that one super straight. That's okay, I can fix it. Let's trim this one. Like I said, this is from the Echo Park Salutations Christmas. This is from the Mega Pad, the Mega 6x6, which has all these great little cut aparts and little sentiments in there as well. And you can really have lots of fun just layering up all these little messages. I'm going to put that one to the left. You know what? Let's dovetail. Get close to the bottom because I still want it to get seen when this is closed. And I'm going to grab, I should have, no, I don't want green. I want just a little scrap of red. So I'm going to take this, put it right here in the corner of my red. Just mat it up a little bit so it's got a little extra punch. And we will stick it on there. On the front, you could absolutely pop that up, and you know what? I'm going to do that. The front is not going to interrupt the mechanism. It's simply on the inside that you don't want to use foam so that it doesn't make things wonky. Okay. Get rid of my backings and make sure it's upright. There we go. And you could tuck stickers, you could add enamel dots, you could add Nuvo drops, you could do anything else that you wanted to bling that up. But now that's just gonna pop open and you are ready to go. So there you have it, ladies and gents. This is our pull-up gift card wallet. And I think it'll make lots of people happy whether you include a gift card or not. I mean, you could absolutely just do this as a just a little interactive mechanism that reveals that message, or you can use that little shelf to add your gift card and treat someone to something special. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget, if you are crafting along with me, whether live or on replay, you can share with us on the Papercrafts Inner Circle. Or if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to email me at customerservice@craftersworkshop.ca. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we will see you for our last gift card holder next Saturday here on YouTube. Thank you.